Hello, everyone. This is Hannah Kavanagh speaking, and welcome to yet another amazing episode of CUNY Uncut, where we talk about anything and everything, uncensored, unedited, and uncut. Today, I'm here with a really inspiring content creator who actually specializes in self-improvement on TikTok with over 200,000 followers. Pretty insane. And he's also the host of the 1% podcast, which recently garnered 1,000 listeners for a singular episode. Amazing stuff. And he's also a junior at Brooklyn College studying comms. I would like to give a warm welcome to Avi Wizwer. How you doing, Avi?
I'm all right. How are you doing?
Doing great. First of all, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to be here. I know this has been like months in the making, a lot of scheduling stuff, which I'm sure you're familiar with through your work. It's part of, it's just part of the journey.
Yeah, it's
But I really appreciate you taking the time to be here today. So yeah, thank you for being here.
No problem.
So today we're actually going to talk about just like the self-improvement sphere as a whole, which has recently been garnering a lot of traction on YouTube, specifically amongst the male population. So we're just going to talk a bit more about that, how you got started with the self-improvement genre, and also just kind of like what your thoughts are on that shift. So okay. I guess the first question that I have for you is like, how did you get into content creating, but more specifically self-improvement?
So the self-improvement journey really started for me about, I would say, right before the pandemic. As that all started, I was trying to go through a very big shift in my life. Obviously, with the whole pandemic and, right before that, there was a lot of chaos, a lot of things going on in the world. But for me personally, there was a shift in, I just got out of a relationship, so I was trying to deal with that. And it's okay. I mean, it's a couple years back. So, and then I was playing on a basketball team at the time, a Division III basketball program, and I was trying to like filter everything that I was going through. It was a very, very rough patch for me, and just trying to really find purpose in my life. Obviously, basketball for me, before content creation, was a very big part of my life. I played 20 years of basketball.
Wow.
I haven't really, taken a step away from basketball, and I focused on content creation, but I was trying to find out what is next. What can I do that would bring the same fulfillment that basketball does? And luckily, I was out the way in North Carolina, so there's not many distractions, and especially the college that I was at, not many distractions. A lot of nature. You're around a lot of trees. You're around basically where you could just walk and you could be able to just think and you could be able to figure out, well, what do I want to do? And I'm kind of grateful that that whole space happened because I was able to find the shift in, well, what can I do next? And it was, as I was going through at that time, obviously my friends were there, to support me during that time. But it was really about, I want to be able to help others. So how can I do that? Mm-hmm. And during that time, there would be a lot of quotes that I would post on my story, or there'd be a lot of things that I would say on my story, and I was just kind of letting it be, and I wasn't really thinking anything of it. So when I was doing that, a lot of people would be like, yo, I needed this, or I needed to be able to hear this today, and, keep posting these, and it was kind of like a therapeutic process for me. I was going to the gym at this time. That's when I started to go to the gym, and I started to pick up a lot of books, started to meditate, and I didn't really start to journal yet, but I was trying to do a lot of these things to be able to affect my inner dialogue, affect my inner world, to be able to create a better output and the way I feel about myself.
Right.
So within doing that, the pandemic happened, and I was a pizza delivery driver at the time, so I was trying to be able to figure out, all right, well, I see TikTok going crazy. People are posting TikToks, they're bored, they're in the house. So let me just see what I could be able to do. So I started to post a lot of in my car content, and at first it was extremely discouraging. At first it was I was kind of self-conscious. Should I be doing this? Is this something that I'm meant for? Just a lot of negative thoughts.
So have you thought about content creation before that moment in your life where you kind of have to pivot away from basketball, or is it something that was like a eureka moment? You woke up and you were like, let me try this thing.
It was kind of both. During that season, I started a YouTube channel.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And I started to post like vlogs and stuff like that. So I guess there was a little content creation before then. So I kind of went into that gear of, all right, well, that's content creation in itself. So let me see if I could do smaller content. What would that do? So as I was doing that, and as I was starting to post on TikTok, I noticed that it made me feel good. And it wasn't, obviously, yes, it's for the other people as well, but it was kind of like these are some things that I'm going through. I'm just going to share them. And if it resonates with people, it's going to resonate. And if it's not, it's going to not. So when I was doing that, I started to feel extremely good about myself because I was kind of documenting my journey.
Right.
As I was going throughout that. So it was very therapeutic for me. And as I started to do it more and more, I started to find myself gaining confidence. I started to find myself not really worrying about how do I look, what I'm saying, is it okay, is it not okay. I started to find myself just feeling overall good about everything that I was doing. And, you know, with fitness and stuff like that, it eventually started to take off, where a couple of videos, you know, went viral. And during that time, it kind of hit me like, this is something that you're doing.
Right.
And you're within your journey, you're affecting other people, you're helping other people. And at first I was kind of like, well, this is a lot. And as more started to come in, it's, you know, the instant gratification, you see it, and then it's kind of like a dopamine rush where you're just like, I'm seeing more follows, I'm seeing more likes, I'm seeing more comments, and I'm changing people's lives. But as I was going on that journey throughout content creation, I found myself kind of like itching for the likes. I kind of found myself, well,
That's tough.
if my videos aren't getting traction, well, what does that say about me? And trying to separate my self-worth from the videos, trying to separate my self-worth from videos doing well was a very hard process for me. There's moments of weakness where I still deal with that, but I try to separate myself from the videos doing well.
Yeah. No, that's a smart way to go about it. And it's like, I don't know, it's just so cool that it started off as something to do for yourself as a form of like positive, you know, it's the equivalent of like someone writing a positive affirmation in like a journal or something. But for you, it's like, you know, it's in video form out there for everyone to see. Yeah. But one thing in particular that I noticed is just like the immense sense of positivity that really shines through your work, which I find kind of rare with a lot of social media content, whether it be through YouTube or TikTok or otherwise. That one thing that I notice is that a lot of times, you know, people will usually like post something as like, not necessarily like deprecating, but more just kind of pointing out like what's wrong with the world, what's wrong with ourselves, what's wrong with society. So it's interesting that you kind of put a positive spin on those things. But I notice that's kind of a rare form of content nowadays. And I'm wondering like where you think that comes from.
In terms of like the positivity or just the both sides of the spectrum?
I guess more the positivity, but you can comment on both for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess for myself, I know that there's a lot of negative in the world. There's a lot of things that go on externally that already affect us. So for me to post more negative, I'm just feeding into the social norm of what society may want me to post.
Right.
And if I can just focus on the positive and kind of generating that positive message, I believe that always love and positivity will always be able to outweigh hate, negative comments, whatever it may be. And that obviously there's a lot of negative things that I deal with myself. So when I talk to, you know, some of my followers, or I talk to some people that, you know, may see me, I tell them, listen, my life is not perfect. Just because you see me spreading these positive messages doesn't mean that there's things that I don't deal with internally. A lot of times we see somebody's life and we think that just because it's rainbows and sunshines does not mean that there's no darkness or there's no clouds affecting
you really
them.
Can't have one without the other.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? It's like a yin yang kind of a thing.
Absolutely.
But I know that there's a lot of stigmas surrounding self-improvement as like a sphere. on the internet. I think the most surface level one that people normally have is like they'll look at content regarding self-improvement and be like, oh, that's obvious though. That's obvious to me. What's the point of putting this out there? That sort of thing. So I guess like what would you say to people that are kind of looking at self-improvement through the lens of like, oh, this is something that people should know inherently. Like, why do you think it's so important to still put this content out there?
I think self-improvement is something that everybody should embark on, whether it's going to the gym, whether it's trying to face and battle your traumas, maybe depression, maybe anxiety, or you're trying to be able to gain a better peace of mind. I don't think stagnancy and being stagnant in life, I just think it'll create more problems for you. And if you're just focusing on something that you can improve on, maybe if it's just one thing within the year that you want to be able to overcome, I think you'll feel a lot better about yourself. And at least for me, obviously there's times where you're going to be stagnant. It's not going to be, every time, every day, every week, every month, it's going to be up. There's going to be, it's not linear. It's going to be, like we talked about before, it's not linear. So there's going to be times where you're increasing your value. There's going to be times where you feel good about yourself. Your confidence is high. And there's going to be times where things happen, life happens, where your confidence is gone. You don't know where you are. You don't know what you're doing, and you feel lost.
Right.
But I think it's just looking at the end of the tunnel, the light at the end of the tunnel, and continuously just walking, continuously just moving forward, and eventually within that, you'll eventually find the light. So I think the self-improvement is, I just think that's what we should be doing. I think that you should want to surround yourself around, whether it's videos, whether it's people that are helping you and helping your cause or your purpose or your life in general, instead of just staying around people that are stagnant.
For sure. And it's funny because it's interesting as well how the self-improvement sphere has like really shifted over the past like 20 to 30 years. Because I think there was a time where, a lot of the demographics that really dabbled in self-improvement were women, and you kind of see that with books like The Secret, which is kind of woo-wah, the whole idea of like, manifestation, think it'll come. I mean, obviously you have to do the thing. You can't just think the thing. Between that, Deepak Chopra, Oprah's like spiritual shows, that sort of thing. And then you really notice like a drastic shift within the past 10 years to more masculine audiences, like predominantly male. And I couldn't help but think about that as I was kind of looking at your content as someone that's previously appeared on the 1% podcast as the first woman on your show, 20 episodes in to, your gym content in tandem with your self-improvement stuff. So I'm kind of wondering if that's something that you've noticed. Like, do you see your audience as men, predominantly male?
Honestly, you'd be surprised. I've taken a look at my demographics. A lot of it is women.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Of it's more women than it is men.
Wow.
Maybe it's just because it's a lot of like relationship or content sometimes, or just, I don't know, but a lot of it is women. More women than men, actually. I mean, I just think, the self-improvement community doesn't have a gender. It doesn't have, it's for whoever needs it, whoever needs that shine of light, whoever needs that shine of positivity. I think it's for everybody. I don't think it's for one specific gender or one specific type of race. It's for everybody that wants to improve their life and wants to become better and wants to spread their light or follow their purpose, chase success, whatever it may be, growth. Doesn't have to be just one singular population. I feel like it's for everybody.
For sure. I think that common misconception still exists, and I guess I'm a living example of it because I was telling you my initial impressions. But why do you think that's the case a lot of the time? Like, why do you feel like there's a lot of people that really view self-improvement as like a male-dominated space nowadays?
I think it's just from the creators that are now pushing that content. I won't get really into deep about that community, but I think that it's a lot of male dominated content that are now spewing
You can get into it if you want.
So I just don't think that within the content that they produce, I think it's a lot of back and forth. You know, it's a lot of people that will try to blame one gender or both genders. But I think it's a collective effort. You know, it's not just one. We can't just blame one type of people. Right. It's got to be everybody, because if it's just one type of people, well, how are we able to do that? How are we able to accuse another gender if we ourselves are not putting in the work? And a lot of them will just say, you know, hateful things and negative things about the other gender. But in actuality, it's just everybody as a whole.
Yeah.
And that's why I think the whole self-improvement thing should be. It shouldn't just not be a gender. It should be everybody. Because if we all improve, then there would be no negatives in the world. There would be no hate in the world. But I understand, you know, we previously talked about the yin and the yang. There needs to be a certain type of community for one community to thrive.
So I'm curious, like how do you feel like you promote that through your work?
I try to not make it specific towards one demographic, one gender. I think success, I think growth, I think pain, I think suffering, I think overcoming those obstacles are universal. It's not just one specific area of group that will experience that. Everybody will experience all of those things. To me, it's inevitable. That's what I think creates a better character for life. We're gonna, at some point, we may love somebody to the point where it breaks us, and now we have to overcome that. And that's universal. That's not just man or woman. We may get turned down for a job that we really, really wanted, and we didn't get it.
Yeah.
And that's not towards man or woman or any gender or any demographic. It's universal. Pain is universal. We all experience pain. We all experience trauma. So I think that within my messages, I try to make it universal as possible, to not make it geared towards one specific group.
No, for sure. And you kind of see that even through different kinds of media, like literature, film, music, that pain is just like an overarching human experience. So
Absolutely.
You're totally right. Every single person is going to experience pain.
Absolutely.
And definitely has and will continue to.
Absolutely.
But another thing that I kind of noticed as well is that, you know, the self-help in particular is like a multi-billion-dollar industry. I think currently it's worth maybe like 15 billion or something, and it's only considered to go up from here. And I noticed there's a lot of like self-improvement people that take advantage of their audience who may be struggling in the moment and want to feel affirmed and seen. But there's instances where it creates this paradoxical element of like further perpetuating that, because it doesn't help to just hear words of affirmation. You need to really implement it and like through action, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering how you differentiate yourself from those other kinds of content creators that are, you know, either taking advantage of their audience or solely doing it for the clout.
I think what separates me from the rest of the content creators is I think my content is raw and it's organic and it's genuine. I don't fabricate anything. I don't make it seem as if everything is perfect. I don't make it seem that my life is this great thing. I try to be as real and try to give the most raw answers that I can to whether it's something that I'm dealing with, something that, you know, on a podcast. And I try to differentiate myself by actually doing the work.
Right.
I think that some self-improvement creators don't actually do the work. I think they just, you know, talk and they don't actually face the things that they're doing.
Is there any particular examples that come to mind? You don't need to list these people by name if you don't want to, but is there specific instances of that ring a bell?
Like I said, it's so easy on social media to really put one. It's so easy to just hide that side of yourself. So for me to say that somebody does that, I can't really say, just because
I guess it's just assumed, isn't it?
yeah, we're just assuming that all of their life is great. We're assuming that everything that they're going through is fantastic. You know, they drive the best cars, they're around the most fanciest people, they have the biggest houses. So I can never be able to say that. But from some of the people that I talk to, I can see that there is realness in the community, that there's a lot of people that follow me that I'm close with that create content that are also in it for the raw, organic content. They're not just there for clout. They're not there to just post one video on TikTok and then just go viral. They're there for creating a community, trying to be better for their community, creating a better version of themselves for their community. And I think there's a very fine line between actually doing the work and actually just talking about the work.
Right.
Like, if you're putting in the work every day, whether it's emotionally, physically, spiritually, towards becoming better, then you're doing the work. So if you can back that up as well, then you're already way above or farther ahead than other creators.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, though. There's definitely is a fine line, and it kind of goes back to what you said earlier, when you were saying that, you know, a lot of times, you know, it's still a struggle here and there when you look at views and you're kind of comparing, you know, one post that you did from the last one. So I'm wondering, like, kind of how you ensure, because you're right, though, it is such a fine line. Like, how do you ensure that you're on the side of the line where you're still being raw and authentic with your content compared to just doing it for clicks? You know what I mean? Or views, I should say, not clicks.
I think I have to be real with myself. If I'm in a good space, if I feel creative, I don't try to force it onto myself, because I've noticed that the more that I force it, the more that it just runs away from me. Like, the more I try to force content, the more I just try to force feed content just because my page may be doing well, doesn't mean that I should just continuously do that. You know, I need to be able to make sure that I'm taking care of my mental health, taking care of my physical health, taking care of everything else. And if that means that I have to take a break for a little bit, then that's what it is. I also, you know, go to school, so I want to be able to make sure that I'm hitting in every other area of my life. And I know that social media will always be there. You know, it's not going to just run away. Obviously, there's talks about TikTok being banned, but in terms of social media, I know it'll always be there. So I would feel I would be doing a disservice to my community, be doing a disservice to myself, and I would feel like an imposter if I'm not becoming the best version of myself. If there's things that I'm dealing with personally and I'm not in the best headspace to create, then it just wouldn't feel right. It wouldn't feel organic.
Yeah.
And you know, recently my account on TikTok has been taking a hit with views.
Oh, why do you think that is?
I don't know. I know that the algorithm is something that will never be understood or never be able to understood. So I really don't try to pay attention to it too much.
That's good.
I just try to make sure that I'm still posting on other platforms that will still be able to get the message around. Just because, you know, my TikTok took a hit.
But your podcast is doing really well.
Yeah, my podcast on Instagram is doing very well. And just my podcast in general is doing very well. So I try to look at it half full and half empty. And okay, maybe it's not doing well right now, but that doesn't mean that it just can't come back. All of a sudden, there could be other things about it. You know, the message, the delivery, and the message could be a little, I want to say, off, or maybe the message I'm sending is not the best, or there's a various amount of things that could be happening, but I just try to be able to make sure that I'm the best version of myself so I can be able to give the best content.
Absolutely. And I guess another thing I kind of wanted to ask you as well, I think it's so easy for our identities to kind of get misconstrued through different platforms, because you're putting out a certain, like, persona, even if it's like, even if it is raw and authentic, it's still performance, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So I'm wondering, like, what do you think people get wrong about you through your work?
They think I'm a really serious person. They think that I guess it's just the structure of my face where people think they might think, oh, this guy's a jerk.
Like a stoic.
Yeah, very stoic. Why does he seem so mad? But if they have a conversation with me, I think that the misconception would be that, oh, he's pretty, he's down to earth. I don't try to let the external validation affect who I am, because I still remember who I was before all of it. And I think that I've seen people that as soon as they get the fame, the recognition, they forget who they are, or they forget to treat the people that they were there for them before all of that. So I think the misconception is that people think that I'm too serious sometimes, and I don't have like a funnier, lighter side.
Have you been told that before? Like when people are like, "Oh, I like meeting you. I thought you'd be."
Oh yeah,
like, wow. Yeah, that's so funny.
I won't say what they thought of me on camera, but they thought I was extremely. They had a different perception, I'd say.
Yeah.
So when they get to know me and they just have a conversation with me, they're like, "Wow, like I thought you were gonna be extremely different." And I'm like, you see the content I post, you think I would be any different, and I think that that's really what the misconception is. And I try to, whenever anybody I meet, I try to be able to kind of nip that in the bud.
I guess it's also nice to take people by surprise sometimes too, throw a curveball.
Yeah.
But I guess the last question that I have for you is like, how do you plan on continuing to grow your brand whilst at the same time staying true to who you are?
I think the thing that I've been noticing as of recently is that there's obviously the platforms that I have, right? And there's more platforms that I need to grow on, YouTube, and hopefully, in the near future, I could be able to start posting podcast content on YouTube. But I think the thing that I need to continuously focus on is that before we started the podcast, I talked about not focusing on what's next and focusing less on what can I do, and instead just focusing on what can I do now that will set me up in a better position for the future. And I feel as if I continuously focus on that, if I focus on what can I do in this very moment today that will better my life tomorrow, I think that it'll set me in a completely different pace, and it will set me in a different light and kind of progress everything that I'm doing. I'm somebody that looks to the future a lot, and I'm somebody that, I want to be here, in a couple of years, and this is what I want to be doing. I need to be getting this or doing that. But just really focusing on presence and just focusing on this present moment will kind of set me up for success. And in success, I mean just me being in a better space, me being better in every aspect of my life. I don't always believe that success is monetary. So obviously, if I could have some better financial situation, obviously yes, but I want to be, to me, success is happiness, so I want to be in a better space in the future than now, and doing things that I'm continuously loving in the future. So I think that's what I would say.
Awesome. That's so cool. Well, listen, I could talk with you forever. This was like such an incredible conversation. But we're gonna wrap up. But is there anything that you'd like to plug before we wrap up? Whether it be socials, your podcast, all that stuff.
So you can find me on TikTok _Avi Wizwer. You can find me on Instagram _Avi Wizwer. And on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, you can find me at the 1% Podcast.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to put it all up on the screen and blast it so everyone can, follow your content. But yeah, thank you so much, Avi, for joining me on CUNY Uncut. This was such an awesome conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So yeah, this is CUNY Uncut, where we talk about anything and everything. Uncensored, unedited, and uncut. Thank you for tuning in. Bye, everybody.